Good afternoon, or konnichiwa. Welcome to Elder Law Services Annual Nisei Elder Law Seminar. We'd like to thank you for joining us today, as well as the East San Gabriel Valley JCC for allowing us to be here today. Restrooms are right outside, they're straight ahead. My name is Marika, and the first person that I'm going to be introducing is the founding attorney here at Elder Law Services. Judd Matsunaga began Elder Law Services back in 1995 and has been hosting our Nisei Elder Law Seminar for the past 21 years. For over 2 decades, Judd has been helping families all over Southern and Northern California in areas such as wills and trusts, Medi-Cal planning, probate, asset protection, and much more. So if you could please give a warm welcoming hand for Judd Matsunaga.
Thank you, Marika. Am I live, George?
Yes, you should be.
Okay. Well, welcome and thank you for coming. I usually talk to seniors, but as I look around the room, I see a bunch of young people. Anybody here over 65? A couple of you? Okay. Anybody here over 75? I'm going to give a free raffle ticket to the oldest person here. Do I have 80? 80? Couple of you? 80? 85? How about 80? 82? 82? You're the oldest person here? Nobody else? Okay. Well, congratulations. Thank you for coming. Thank you. And you're healthy? At 82?
I guess so.
All right. That's what we want to hear. According to the American Association of Retired People, 1 out of 3 Americans 85 and over have Alzheimer's. So I'm going to start out with a little dementia test. Let's all assume we're 85 years old. Okay. Now, if you look to the person on your right and they look okay, then you look at the person on the left. They look okay. That means you have it. Back from grade school, you might remember these geometrical shapes. I brought 4. A square, okay, a rectangle, a triangle, all right? They taught that back when we were little, right? Okay, and a circle. Okay? Now, the psychologists tell us that every one of us identify with one of these 4 basic geometrical shapes. So, by a show of hands, how many of you identify most with a square? Okay? Any squares out there? A couple here? All right. You're called the guardians, and you like to follow the rules and work best independently. Okay? All right. How about rectangles? How many rectangles? Okay. Rectangles are called idealists, and you like to expand the walls of conflict and believe friendly cooperation is the best way to get things done. All right. Any triangles out there? Triangles are called rationalists, and you have the ability to see things at a different angle. And that would mean the rest of you are circles. You're the ones addicted to gambling and alcohol. All right. The real reason I brought this is because this kind of represents demographics in America, right? A lot of young people are running around, and the older you get, the less of you there are, your peers. I have an uncle that says he's 93 or 4, that all of his golfing buddies are dead. So can anybody tell me, 200 years ago, when this nation was founded, 1776, what life expectancy was? Any guesses? 30? Yes?
15.
That's a little young. 35. So I'm going to give you. That's a good guess. So 200 years ago, a child born in 1776 could expect to live to be only 35 years old. Median age, is what you're talking about, that's the average age, was only 16, okay? Now, 100 years later, life expectancy increased to 40, and median age was only 21. So back in those days, people didn't gather to have elder law seminars because there wasn't much to talk about. Now, since 100 years ago, guess what's happened? We've had tremendous advances in science and medicine. Penicillin was invented. Pasteurization of milk. And guess what's happened to the demographics of America? It's done this. Okay? The fastest growing segment of American population is 85 plus. Okay? By the year 2030, the older population will more than double. There'll be 71.5 million Americans over 65. So it's going to be fashionable to be a senior. Americans 65 plus will outnumber teens 2-1. Okay? How many people here plan to make it to be 100? Right? So hopefully some of you. I'm going to be 142 years. Okay? But when I get there, I want to have some vitality and strength. So I started to study what can you do to age gracefully so that when you make it to 100, that you're still of sound mind and physically fit where you can get around. And I came across a study called the MacArthur Twin Study, and they took 200 pairs of twins, both identical and fraternal twins. And what they wanted to figure out is whether you age, how healthy you age, is it determined by genetics or lifestyle? So genetics is, my father died of a heart attack when he was 50, my grandfather died of a heart attack when he was 50, I'll probably die of a heart attack when I'm 50. That's genetics, okay? Lifestyle is whether you exercise, whether you eat properly, that kind of stuff. If you can figure out a way to deal with stress. And what they found out in the MacArthur Twin Study was when you're young, your early years, whether you're healthy or not, it's mostly genetics. But when you get older, it depends mostly on your lifestyle. So it's whether you smoke or not. How overweight you may or may not be. So how many people here think that taking vitamins is the key to longevity? Everybody here take vitamins? Right, good. I take vitamins and you should. But they did another study and they took centenarians all over the world, people that made it to 100 years old, that were healthy and vital. And they found 3 common denominators that all these centenarians have in common. And believe it or not, taking vitamins wasn't one of those 3 common denominators, because they found people 100 years plus in other parts of the world that don't take vitamins. Okay? Now, right now with the Olympics going on, a lot of people tell me that being physically fit, that's the key to longevity. And hopefully most of you here exercise, right? But they found out that being physically fit was not a common denominator for aging successfully. Because if that were true, your Olympians, your professional athletes, they tend to live longer. But that's not the case. Okay? So I want to share with you 3 common denominators. And the first one is these centenarians that were healthy and strong at 100 years old all tended to be lean. Okay? So being lean incorporates you eat properly. It also incorporates that you get some exercise. Okay? The second one is they all tended to be non-smokers. Okay? You know, somebody always raise their hand and say, hey, what about George Burns? He made it to 100 and he smoked. And my only comment is I did see George being interviewed on TV before his death, and the host asked George the same question. Hey, George, what does your doctor think about you smoking cigars? And George said, I don't know. My doctor's dead. This third one is what I'm going to talk about a little bit. They all have the ability to deal with stress. We all have stress, okay? And you need to figure out a way that you can relieve your stress, all right? Whatever that might be. And that brings me to the handouts. In your handouts, you should have on the insert a gold sheet of paper like this. And it's titled 8 Essential Strategies for Keeping Your Mind Sharp and Your Body Young. Okay? It comes from this book written by Dr. Gary Small, who's the director of UCLA's Aging, Center on Aging. So I actually attended one of the seminars, met him after the seminar, and I asked him, do you have anything for me to share with my senior clients? He said, get a copy of my book. And what I did was, mine is 5 years ago, I actually wrote down those 8 essential strategies, and I wanted to give that to you. I'm going to just go over half of them, and you can read the rest when you get home. But the first one he talks about is to sharpen your mind. So a study in the New England Journal of Medicine found that if you participate in leisure activities, it'll cut the risk for developing Alzheimer's by 1/3. Okay? So by attending the San Gabriel Valley Japanese Community Center, by coming to lectures, by going to whatever you do, playing cards or going to play bingo, that's actually helping keeping your mind sharp. So you're on the right track just because you're coming to lectures like this and learning things. Number 2, keep a positive outlook. You remember the guy that sees the glass half full and half empty. Well, according to a Yale University study, older people who view aging in a positive light live an average of 7.5 years longer. Okay. Number 3, cultivate healthy and intimate relations. And this is a Harvard study that showed that if you spend time with your friends, that it'll increase 20% survival rate than those that don't socialize. I have at a retirement home, you might have heard of Hollenbeck Retirement Home, right next to Cato Retirement Home in Boyle Heights. I have an uncle, an aunt, and another aunt that are all there. And I'm there all the time, and one lady told me on Mondays they play bingo. On Tuesdays they go to dance. On Wednesdays they go to exercise class. On Thursdays they have movie night. Every day they've got something to do. And so if you have a family member, usually on the death of a spouse, the surviving widow or widower, they have something called a widower's effect. They say that chances are within 9 months they could pass away also. Not if you put them in one of these retirement homes where they get socially interactive with other people. Had another friend that after he lost his wife, sold his home in Northridge, moved into Cato Retirement Home. And he told me an amusing story. He said the very first day he was there, he was still grieving the passing of his wife. And he walked around the grounds and found a courtyard, and he wanted to sit on the bench and just be with his own thoughts. And he said that within 10 minutes, 2 ladies walked into the courtyard, and there were plenty of other benches around, but they made a beeline to him, and they each sat one seat on each side of him. And the lady said, "Hey, you're new. We haven't seen you here before." And he goes, "Oh, I don't want this right now." And so I'll try to get rid of him. So he goes, "Well, yeah, that's right. I'm new here because I just got out of jail." It doesn't faze the lady. The other one said, "Oh, really? What'd you do?" And he says he thought to himself, "This isn't going to be easy." And he says, well, I just got it out of jail because I killed my wife. And then both of them, their eyes lit up and they said, oh, you're single. Number 4, the last one I want to talk about is promote stress-free living. And it says that whatever the cause, stress is a major contributor to age-related diseases. And learning to minimize stress, such as meditation, yoga, tai chi, just going out to lunch with your friends or playing cards, will help you deal with stress. Now, can anybody tell me what the #1 cause of stress is amongst seniors in America? Got a raffle ticket.
Money?
Money, absolutely. Okay, can you pass this back over here? Thank you. Many seniors that I deal with who are on fixed incomes, and Social Security really hasn't gone up much lately, and yet food, gas, utilities keeps going up. They've already got it figured out. They calculated it. They know that they only have this much of savings in the bank. And they also know that their income is fixed, and yet their expenses are rising. And so every month they have to dip into that savings, right, to cover the cost of living. So they say, I've got enough savings in the bank to last me another 3 years, right? But the problem is they're hoping to get another 10 good years. And what's going to happen if I get sick and need help? So that's a tremendous cause of stress. So what I have basically tried to help my clients in my elder law practices. This is what most seniors are worried that their savings are going to look like upon their death. Nothing to pass on to their children. Now, if there was a way to do this, to that, right? How many people want to know how to do that? Okay, I thought so. Now, I think it was the Wall Street Journal that published an article that said the single biggest expense among seniors in America is long-term care. Okay. Whatever the catastrophic illness or disease, a fall, breaking a hip, if you're in a skilled nursing home or rehab center, it's going to run $8,000 to $10,000 a month. That's just for a bed. Okay? If you need an apparatus such as a ventilator, feeding tube, a trach, $20,000 to $50,000 a month. Okay? So your life savings could disappear in a very short period of time, and you could die penniless. And I know that the people that are 80 years old now, the average age of a nursing home resident is 80. They lived in a time where they pinched pennies. They did without in order to try to pass on something to their children to make it easier for them. So the first attorney that I'm going to bring up to talk to you runs our Medi-Cal department. So a lot of you have heard stories that Medicare will not pay for long-term care, right? That's true. Medicare will pay for hospital stays, but not for long-term care. Medi-Cal will pay for long-term care, but you've probably heard that you can't have money or you can't have a house. And all of that is rumors and actually not true. Okay, so for the last 10 to 12 years, I've been helping families that have a loved one in a nursing home protect their homes, protect their savings, and get the government through the Medi-Cal program paid for long-term care. And this next attorney is going to tell you how to do that. His name's Andrew Paranal. He's at the University of California, Santa Barbara, and got his Juris Doctorate from the University of San Diego. While attending law school, he was a volunteer for the HUD housing clinics, conducted mock trials, and USD Trial Advocacy Program and captained graduate intramural sports teams. He became passionate about elder law after caring for one of his ailing grandfathers who suffered a debilitating stroke. Andrew previously served as a summer intern for our law office and is happy to be able to help families in their times of need. So please welcome Andrew Paranal.
But this is a really important topic that I'm really passionate about. So like Judd was saying, long-term care is so expensive. And unfortunately, 2 out of 3 people over the age of 65 are going to need long-term care at some point. So this is a really important topic, is how do you qualify for long-term care, and how do you pass on your assets without it being taken by the state of California? Okay, so just to start, I have a little demonstration, if I can please call it Marika. And I asked this gentleman over here to be a volunteer. What's your name, sir?
Patrick.
Patrick, come up to the front, Patrick. Okay, so Patrick worked hard his whole life. So now he owns a home, some rental property, a car, and some cash, some life savings. And also, here's your daughter that you just met. Okay, so when you pass away, Patrick, who would you want all this stuff to go to?
What family member?
You want to your family member, your lovely daughter, Marika. So, upon your passing, you want to give her your savings, your home, your car, and any other property you have. And in a few moments, Staci's going to tell you the best way to do that. But what were to happen, say, if Patrick were to have some kind of catastrophic event, such as a stroke, a fall, something like that? Well, I call this $1 million problem. So the state of California first wants you to spend all of your life savings before you qualify for Medi-Cal. Once you spend all your life savings and no longer having liquid assets, you can come talk to me and I'll set it straight for you. So once you spend all of your life savings, then Medi-Cal will now pay for your long-term care stay in a nursing home. Unfortunately, at that point, they want to be paid back. One way they do that is they take your property. They take anything you own, including the family home. So Marika, what do you have right now? Nothing. So I'm pretty sure most of you don't want us to give all your assets to the state of California. And we're going to talk about how to prevent this. Okay, thank you. We'll give a round of applause for my volunteers. The next person I want to introduce, got a little ahead of myself. So, does anyone know what Medi-Cal is? It is our version of Medicaid. They provide low to no cost health care for individuals. And they'll pay for long-term care. Medicare won't. Medi-Cal will. But it does have some asset limitations. If you look at the pink sheet in your handout, you're not allowed to have very much and still qualify for Medi-Cal. You're only allowed to have about $2,000 or $3,000 in liquid assets. But again, there's these things called exempt assets. They don't count towards your overall cash reserve. So you're allowed to own a home, you're allowed to own a car, and certain assets aren't considered when it comes to eligibility for Medi-Cal. But still, that $2,000 to $3,000 limit is pretty tough. So we're going to talk about how to get around that in a second. Okay, next. So what we're going to do today is run through some scenarios of our common clients. What are our 3 main kind of clients at Elder Law Services? You have seniors that are living at home, they're starting to slow down and have some trouble. That's one kind. Next, this is called crisis planning. It's not really planning, but these are people that come to us when they've already had a spouse or a loved one that's had some kind of debilitating accident or illness. And next, we have people coming to us that think they're never going to qualify for Medi-Cal. So those are the 3 kind of clients we see at our firm. So I'll introduce you to somebody in a second. introduce you to was my Nana. My Nana, she's 92 years old, and she's still at home. She's still pretty healthy. Her only real illness is being really stubborn, but she just needs a little bit of help at home. So who takes care of her? My mother. My mom is the one that spends 3 days a week cooking meals, cleaning, light housework, things like that for my Nana. But she can't be there all the time. My mom just retired. She's trying to enjoy herself as well. So what Medi-Cal will actually pay for once you're qualified is something called IHSS. Does anyone know what IHSS is? It stands for In-Home Supportive Services. It's actually a really good program, but one of the main requirements for IHSS is that you're already qualified for Medi-Cal and actually on the Medi-Cal program. But once you're on IHSS, you can contact them, and they'll send a social services director to you. And what they do there is they assess your need, how much help you actually need at home. Once they kind of evaluate your situation, see how sick you are, how much help you need or don't need, they'll assign you a number of hours. This hours is multiplied by a county rate, anywhere between $11 and $15, somewhere around there. They can use to pay anybody. You can pay a friend, you can pay a professional caregiver, or you can even pay a family member to come help you out at home. So that's what the IHS program does for you. Anyone know any good jokes? So IHSS is a really great program for people that don't really, need that level of care provided at, say, an assisted living program or in a nursing home. They still want to remain independent, but they have some trouble. It's hard for them to cook. It's hard for them to clean. So if you're having some trouble at home, or your loved one is having some trouble at home, it's really worth maybe doing some Medi-Cal planning, getting qualified, so you can take advantage of this great program. The second kind of client we see at our office is typically something we call the crisis client. And I don't like to call it planning because it's not really planning. It's something that kind of happened. And we see a lot of this. This is when a loved one has a stroke, a fall, something like that, and they come to our office and they're starting to freak out. How am I going to pay this $8,000 a month without, bankrupting my mother when my father is the one sick in the nursing home? So this is called crisis planning. And we try to avoid it. We don't want this to happen, but we do have a lot of strategies to qualify these people. There we go. So in these crisis situations, if people are freaking out because you have these asset limitations, they don't want to drain all their savings. Slideshow. Press slideshow button. Over the top of the bar. Top there. Just pass it right there. And then from parent slide. Sorry. One more. Left. One more. Perfect. Okay, we'll go through these at double time. Okay, so crisis planning. Of course, we get to important stuff. That's my dad too. Right there. Going down? Right there. Sorry about that, folks. Okay, so let's get back into crisis planning. One of our clients, this isn't their real names, Mr. and Mrs. Fuji. They're a typical client. So they had about $100,000 in liquid assets. This includes IRAs, this includes annuities, life insurance policies, and they owned a home, family home. Mr. Fuji had a fall, and he had to go to rehab, and then he was going to be needing nursing home care, but he had too many assets. Again, you're only allowed to have $2,000, $3,000 to still qualify for Medi-Cal. So that was a real problem. What can we do for them? Well, right now, we were able to do some planning. We were able to get Mr. Fuji qualified for Medi-Cal. We have a lot of techniques. We'll get into them a little later on when we get to our other clients. But we were not only able to get him qualified for Medi-Cal, we were able to get his application approved on time, so they didn't have to pay out of pocket at all. It saves them it saves the family $8,000, $10,000 a month. And again, because he was still married to Mrs. Fuji, she still had to live at home. If you live at home, the at-home spouse is allowed to keep $119,000 of assets. That sounds like a lot, but it's really not. So there's all these things called spousal impoverishment laws, something that our office also specializes in. We were able to actually transfer income from Mr. Fuji, who was in the nursing home, to Mrs. Fuji at home. Otherwise, his income would have been paid directly to the nursing home as share of costs. It's kind of like an insurance deductible. But instead...
Wait a minute, I lost it.
Okay.
It says, Mr. Fuji say he gets a pension of $6,000 a month. And then,
Sure.
So you said...
That goes directly to the nursing home in most cases.
Oh.
But with our help, we can help you actually try to get that allocated over to the at-home spouse. So
Oh, you can.
You can. So right now there's a limit right now. It's a little under $3,000. But there's other things we can do. We can actually go to probate court, something called a 3100 petition, and we can allocate all the assets to the at-home spouse, including all income. So say we had a client not too long ago. They were pretty wealthy, but again, they were young. He had an accident about 55. She was 50. They used to make, I think, almost $9,000 a month, and that's way over the limit Medi-Cal would normally allow you to keep. But by going to court, she got to keep everything, so she was able to maintain their nice house, keep all their cars, things like that. Yeah, you can get to. It's kind of just showing everything at once.
How far down you went? This one?
Up a little bit. Crescent line, right? There's one more. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, just...
Get from current slide. At the top.
Yeah, but that's what was messing up.
So it's not. Okay.
I'll just...
Okay, it's okay. Sorry about that. Let's go at the top of my head. So anyway, so we were able to allocate everything to the at-home spouse and qualify them for Medi-Cal, so they didn't have to spend all their assets before they ever qualified. Okay, so what's our third kind of client? I like to call this kind of client the never will I ever. These are people that think they'll in no way will they ever qualify for Medi-Cal. Mr. Nobunaga is not also his real name either. He owned a lot of assets. He had almost $1 million in liquid. This is annuities, financial accounts, brokerage accounts, things like that. He also owned 2 vacant lots, a home, and 2 rental properties. He came to us and he said he was interested because he's starting to get older, but he thought, you know what, I've heard that there's these Medi-Cal asset limitations, I'll never qualify. But right now I'm telling you, we can't qualify anyone for Medi-Cal. These are the strategies that we use. You know, I was talking about qualifying people. We use all these for Mr. Nobunaga, but in individual cases, we have to use some and sometimes we don't. We use staff gifting. Staff gifting, Medi-Cal doesn't want you to be able to give your assets away and qualify. Everybody would do that, and the program would be broke overnight. If you go to an elder law attorney, they'll tell you how to do this. So what this means is you'll be able to get your assets out of your name to a loved one or children over time, qualify for Medi-Cal without getting hit with any kind of penalties. This is called staff gifting. Proportional deeding. This is also similar to staff gifting, but it has to do with property. So you're only allowed to own one principal residence to qualify for Medi-Cal. But if you go to an experienced elder law attorney, they'll be able to get that real estate out of your name and get you qualified for Medi-Cal. Finally, you have something called legal separation. So you can, even though you're still married, you can use all the benefits of being married. You can file taxes together. But if you're legally separated, we're able to allocate assets to individual spouses, get somebody qualified, and not have to get rid of any of the assets. You're not going to have to spend anything to qualify. Last is our irrevocable trust. This gets things out of your estate to get you qualified. This is kind of a rare situation, and only in certain circumstances do we want to use that. But again, these 4 strategies, we can get anybody qualified for Medi-Cal right now. Okay, so right now is a great time to actually qualify for Medi-Cal. There's something that was just passed, SB 833. And what that means is it's going to be a lot harder to recover if you've planned for Medi-Cal correctly. So right now, people are always hearing about recovery, like we were talking about. Medi-Cal wants to recover what they paid for upon your passing. But with this new law, it makes it difficult for them to come after your assets if you plan correctly. And Staci's going to touch on that as well. Finally, the Deficit Reduction Act. Those 4 strategies that I was just talking about, reducing your assets, getting them out of your name to your loved ones, it's going to be going away within 2 years. So if you're thinking you might want to use Medi-Cal and not have to spend all your assets, it's actually a really good time to do it. But it's not 100% that these things are going to be taken away from us, but we hear 6 months to 2 years, we're no longer going to be able to proportionally deed or stack it. Finally, what if you're just not ready? What if you're not ready to do Medi-Cal planning right now? I want to be in control of my assets. We hear that a lot. Staci's going to touch on this as well. She's going to get more into detail. But if you have properly executed POAs and properly executed trusts, even if something happens to you, you have a stroke, you have a fall, you can still help your family prepare you for Medi-Cal, get those assets out of your name. Okay, are there any questions? Questions at all? Okay. So I'm happy to introduce Staci. Staci is a lifelong native of the South Bay, and after attending North Torrance High School, she went on to Loyola Marymount University, where she graduated magna cum laude as a valedictorian finalist. From there, she went to attend Southwestern Law School, and she actually participated in an accelerated 2-year program, where she was a member of International Law Journal Honors Program. Currently, Staci is an active member of the Japanese American Bar Association and is sitting on this year's Go for Broke National Education Foundation Board of Directors. Here at our firm at Elder Law Services, she runs our estate planning department. She assists our clients in creation of wills, living trusts, powers of attorney, and other legal documents. Outside of the office, Staci is an avid, competitive hula dancer who loves to hike, ski, fish in Hawaii and in Mammoth. So if you can all give a warm welcome for Staci.
Well, sorry for the technical difficulties today. But as Andrew explained, I'm Staci Yamashita-lida, and I'm the estate planning attorney here at Elder Law Services. And Andrew kind of went over the scenario where if you get sick later on down the line, you may need long-term care. What I'm going to talk about today is estate planning. So this is the best case scenario. Hopefully no one will ever have to use long-term care. We can all live and pass away at home. And in this case, we'll need an estate plan. But before I delve into that, I want to ask, does anyone here have children? Show of hands. Who has kids? Does anyone have 2 children? 3 or more? 4 or more? So 3 children. Raise your hand who has 3 kids again? Okay. Extra rapid ticket. Where do you go? Okay, there we go. You. Thank you. So the reason why I ask is because everyone who raised your hand who have a child, you have a really important reason why you need an estate plan. So one of the main topics that I want to talk about is the need for your loved ones. This can be your children, your family members, friends, or even charities or organizations that you're a part of. Through an estate plan, you're also able to manage and control your assets. So right now, you might be living at home with your daughter. She might be disabled, receiving SSI, disability, something like that. So when you pass away, you want to make sure she has a place to stay. So through an estate plan, you're able to say, okay, I want to make sure that she receives the family home when I'm gone. But you also have a son, and you want to be fair to him. So you say, okay, daughter will get the home, but son will get my money in my checking account, my savings account, maybe my stocks, my bonds. It's a way to make specific gifts to your children or even your grandchildren while still maintaining everything equally. And finally, through an estate plan, you're also able to save on taxes, completely reduce them or even minimize them. And a lot of people ask me, okay, what happens if I don't? And I don't really have very many assets. I'm got a very small estate. But if you pass away without an estate plan, someone you don't necessarily know or like may be put in charge of handling the affairs of your estate or may become a beneficiary. So if everyone here is familiar with Whitney Houston, when she passed away, she didn't have any type of will or trust in place. So when she died, all of her assets were left to her closest living relative, which was her daughter, Bobby Christina Brown. And if you kept up with the news last year, you know that, very sadly, she passed away at a young age. And because she was so young and probably didn't think it was going to happen to her, she didn't have an estate plan in place either. So when she passed away, her assets went to Bobby Christina Brown's closest living relative, her father, because she wasn't married and she didn't have any children. That means everything that Whitney Houston had worked for throughout her entire career was left to her ex-husband, which is probably not what she would have wanted. Finally, someone that, you may not have talked to in a long time, an estranged brother or a distant cousin, is put in charge of handling the affairs of your estate. And the probate court judge, not you, decides who divvies up your estate, who gets what. Now, probate is the process that you go through legally when you pass away without an estate plan. Is anyone familiar with the probate process? Does anyone have to go through it? So if you are familiar with probate, you know it's a big headache. Probate is completely public. So when you pass away and when your beneficiaries or your heirs inherit from you, everything becomes a matter of public record. Someone can do a quick search and see what you owned, how much money you had, who got that money, their addresses, making them very vulnerable and susceptible to creditors. Also, the process is very lengthy. On average, probate takes about 9 to 12 months to wrap up, but that's an average. So for that period of time, your children aren't able to touch the home, touch the money in your bank accounts. Essentially, everything becomes frozen until the probate court judge gives that order that they're able to release the funds. And finally, it is expensive. So if I can direct your attention to the purple sheet in the folders that we gave you, and if we turn it to the side that lists the statutory fees. So let's say that you own a home and some savings and your estate is worth approximately $1 million. So if you don't have a will and trust in place, can I take a look at yours? So if we're looking at the left-hand column, gross estate value at $1 million, you're looking, and then put your finger all the way to the right, the total probate cost, about $48,000 needs to be paid in, that goes to the probate referee, the judge, attorney's fees, all kinds of miscellaneous costs. So that's what your kids have to pay before they get any of your assets. Okay, you might say, I don't have $1 million. All I have is, a home worth maybe $400,000, $500,000 and a small amount of savings. Even then, if you go back up to the $500,000 range, you can see it's almost about $20,000, $30,000 in probate fees that need to be paid. So it is an expensive process. And many people have gone through this. So, take a look here. Can anyone tell me who this lovely lady is right here? Marilyn Monroe. So when Marilyn passed away in 1962, her estate was valued at about $820,000, which, back in the 60s was a lot of money. So she passed away without a trust, meaning her probate fees started to accumulate, eventually totaling about $480,000. That was a 55% loss of estate. All of that had to be paid to those fees right there. Another example, Mr. Elvis Presley. So Elvis passed away in 1977, also without any estate plan set. His estate was worth about $10 million. And when the probate fees started to calculate and accumulate, it ended up being about 7.3, which is a 73% loss of estate. And what's more, with Elvis, his probate is still ongoing. It still hasn't finished. He passed away 40 years ago, and his heirs hadn't seen a dime of his estate. So when I'm talking about 9 to 12 months, again, that's an average. It can take as long as 40 years. So people say, I don't want to have to go through that. I don't want to have to put my children through that. What can I possibly do? And there's a simple solution, and it's to create a living trust. So a living trust is a legal document that dictates who your assets go to when you pass away, and who's going to be in charge of handling the affairs. And going through, again, some of the benefits here. Number one, you avoid the headache of probate. You do not have to put your family members through that. And it gives you a sense of control. You can decide who things go to during your lifetime, And also, again, reduce those estate taxes. So with living trust, we're able to help plan for long-term care, and that's how Elder Law Services is able to provide help for both estate planning and Medi-Cal planning. They really intertwine. So what our trusts have are special provisions that say, if you develop Alzheimer's or if you're in a coma, the people you nominate within your trust, called your trustees, they can actually help get you qualified for Medi-Cal, but they have to have those specific provisions within the trust. Also, it helps people preserve public benefits. Now, let's say that you have beneficiaries who are on disability, who are on Medi-Cal, receive SSI, things like that. If you leave them in inheritance, they will lose their benefits. So, it's something to definitely think about. But the good news is, if you put in these specific provisions, it's called a special needs trust, they're able to receive their inheritance and retain their benefits. But that can only be done, again, if you have these provisions within your trust. And finally, the trust is revocable, so you maintain control throughout your lifetime. As long as you're alive and well, you can make changes at any time to any part of your trust. So, some of you here may already have a living trust. Show of hands, does anyone here have a trust? Oh wow, most of the people here do, that's great. Does anyone here have a trust that's maybe older than 5 years? Older? Older than 10 years? 15? That's good. We have, 15. Okay. All right. If you could pass a raffle ticket back. So you get a raffle ticket for having the oldest trust because we want you to get some kind of benefit, because having the oldest trust is not necessarily a good thing. It's great if you have a trust because you obviously planned ahead to protect your assets, but when the trust gets old or when it's been a long time since its creation, there are some things you definitely need to check. So first of all, is your trust properly funded? And funded is the term that we use to mean is everything in your trust. So if you think of your trust like a fireproof safe, you get one installed in your home and it's great, but it doesn't matter if you don't put your assets into it. Same thing goes with the trust. It doesn't matter if you have a trust if your assets aren't into it. So the main things you should be thinking about is, one, is your home in your trust? Since you created your trust, have you acquired a timeshare, maybe sold your original home, bought a new one, have a rental property or vacation home in Mammoth? All things to think about. If you're still in your original home from when you originally created the trust, have you refinanced it? Because a lot of the times when you do a refi, what they do is they take the home out of the trust and they promise to put it back in, but sometimes don't get around to it. So we want to make sure the trust is still in the home. The home is still in the trust. And also we want to take a look at bank accounts to make sure that those are in the trust as well, so that your accounts become trust accounts. That way your beneficiaries and your trustees have easy access to the funds when you pass. And every couple of years, maybe 5 to 10 years, we ask that you come and see us to do a review of your trust to see if there's been any major changes. Because year to year, tax laws and estate laws do change. Also, we want to take a look at the family dynamics. So since you created your trust, do you have grandkids now? Maybe have your children gotten divorced? Have there been any major deaths in the family? A lot of the times what happens is you create your trust when you're in your maybe 30s, 40s, 50s. Your kids at that age are young, so you don't put them as your trustees. You don't list them as your powers of attorney. Instead, you put your siblings. And then you let 20, 25 years pass, and at that time, your siblings may have passed away, or your kids are old enough now. So we want to make sure that it's completely up to date, so when you pass away, your wishes are honored. And finally, again, we go back to those Medi-Cal provisions. It really is important to have things that are up to date within your trust so that you're able to get the best care possible. And we talk about trusts to handle the affairs of your estate after you're gone. But like Andrew mentioned, we also need specific documents while you're living. So let's say you're driving down to the community center here to play bingo, and you get into a car accident. And now you're in a coma, laying up in a hospital bed. Just because you're in the hospital doesn't mean you get to stop paying your bills. So who's going to do that for you? If you're the only one in your account, there are no other signers. Who's going to take care of the finances? Or even when you're in the hospital, who's going to make the hard decisions for you as a proxy, as a representative? If you don't have the proper documents in place and you are incapacitated, your family is going to have to go through a process called a conservatorship. Another legal complex process that takes a long time and is very costly in order to handle things for you. And again, there is a simple solution, and it's to create powers of attorney. And I'll go over that a little bit in more detail.
That's not in the living trust?
So, a living trust is different from a power of attorney. So
But if you have the living trust, does it have that?
depends.
Oh.
So if you do have a living trust, what I'm going to recommend is when you go home, take a look at this list here. And it's also listed on the back of that purple sheet. So usually what estate planners do is they create a estate planning package. So take a look at your trust binder at home and see, do you have the trust with the latest Medi-Cal provisions? Do you have a certificate of trust, which allows you to put things like your bank accounts into the trust or other financial assets? Do you have a comprehensive transfer document or a pour-over will? And these are really important because we all make mistakes, we're all forgetful. So let's say you do purchase another home, forget to put it into the trust. That will have to be probated because it was not funded properly. But the good news is with things like a comprehensive transfer document and a pour-over will, it's a backup, it's a catch-all. It will take care of it for you. Kids will still have to go through probate, but it's a lot cheaper and a lot quicker for you. So if everything's done properly, you'll never have to use this, but it is there if you need it. And finally, we do have the powers of attorney. Again, one for assets, which in the event that you can't handle the affairs on your own, or even if you can and you're getting older and you want your kids to help you out, they're able to sign checks in your name to help pay for bills. That's the power of attorney for assets. We also need a power of attorney for health care. So again, if you are in a coma and the doctor says, well, can we do this surgery? Can we give them this medication? You have a representative, a child, a spouse, a family member to tell the doctor what your wishes are on your behalf. And finally, a DIPA release, which is really for your own privacy. And what that does is it releases your medical records to the people that you name in your healthcare power of attorney. Again, family or friends. So this is what you need in order to have a complete, up-to-date trust. So again, I urge you to go home, compare this list to your trust, and if you don't have all of these documents or if it's not up to date, come see us so we can let you know what does need to be changed and updated. Or if you don't have a trust at all and you have family, if you have money in your bank account, if you have a home, please come see us and we'll help you get your estate plan in place. We have a little bit of good news for you today. We have a special deal because it's Nisei week. Judd will go over that in a little bit of detail, so I'm going to keep you in suspense for a while. But before we go to that, I'm going to ask, does anyone have any questions for me?
What was the last item?
The HIPAA release?
What is that?
That says that people that you name in your healthcare power of attorney, so
What
your
does it stand for?
Health
Information Privacy or Portability Act.
Health Information Privacy Portability. There we go.
Information.
Privacy.
Portability.
Portability.
Accountability Act, I think that's what the double A's are.
Accountability
Accountability.
Act.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
think it's close enough. I don't know the exact words, but close enough, yeah.
Yes.
Well, I've moved around a little bit in the process. My living trust is nowhere to be found.
Wow.
And I was wondering if I can create a living trust with you, even though I may have something somewhere.
Absolutely. So if you weren't able to hear, she created a living trust, but because she was moving around, it got lost somewhere. So she wants to know if she can create a new trust. Absolutely. So what we do is we create a new trust, give it a different name from the old one so it's not confused in case that ever turns up later. And what we do is a revocation of the old trust. And because these trusts are revocable, that is a right that you have. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, I was wondering, when you have a living trust, can you designate that someone will have a life estate?
Absolutely.
And then what about reversion to the grandkids? And in California, would the life estate go to the spouse if your next of kin died.
Good question. So here's the scenario.
Uh-huh.
So you own a home with your spouse and you pass away. So you want to make sure your spouse has the right to remain in that home for the rest of their lifetime, which they're able to do. But you also, let's say you have a daughter who lives with you again who's disabled, and you want to make sure she has the right to live there. So
No, I mean, like, I'm going to give it to my son,
right.
but if he dies, does his wife get it?
Oh, okay. So if she leaves the home to her son, she
Or
wants to know
does it
if
go
he
to the children?
daughter-in-law gets it. So the answer is, it depends. So trusts are completely customizable. So when you come see me, you'll say, okay, I want my home to go to my son, but if he passes away before me, I don't want it to go to my daughter-in-law, I instead want it to go to my grandkids. Absolutely, you can do that.
No, if it goes to him on a life estate for as long as he's living,
Mhm.
and he dies, does it go to her, or does the life estate revert to the children?
You specify who the reversionary interest goes to. So again, you
But
have
so she couldn't get it before?
No, anything that you inherit, so let's say you do it through the trust, anything you inherit is called your separate property. It's not community property.
Yeah, but say like if he inherited without the life estate, and it just went straight to him, she would get it. If
No, when he inherits it, it's his own property.
he died,
If he dies, it's up to him. So if he dies, it's up to him who
but if
he
he
wants to
doesn't
leave
leave
it
a
to.
will, she gets it.
But if anyone has any questions about maybe daughter-in-laws, life estates, things like that, you can come see me afterwards and we can go over it in more detail. Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
What are AB trust provisions?
So, for married couples, you might have heard of an AB trust. What that was is, 15 years ago, they said if you own more than $675,000 in assets, so if you think about your home and the money in your bank, if you had above that number, you were paying a lot of taxes when you passed away. So people came up with these AB trusts to go ahead and plan for reducing those estate taxes. And what happens was, when one spouse passes away, the trust gets split into two trusts. The A trust was for the survivor, and you remember that because A is for above ground. And the B trust was for the deceased spouse who was below ground. So it got split into these two types of trusts in order to, save you taxes. But now, in 2016, for a married couple, if you have below $10 million, you don't have to worry about something like that. So we want to make sure that if you do have an older trust and you're a married couple, we want to take those provisions out or at least modify them because there's a better way to do it now that doesn't restrict you later on. Yes?
What's the difference between a will and a trust?
So that's also another really common question I get when people come in to see me initially, and it's what's the difference between a will and a trust? So on TV you hear about how you need a last will and testament. And the main difference is, if you own a home, if you own any type of property, you need a trust, not a will. They both dictate who your beneficiaries are going to be, but again, if you own a home, a will is not enough. A trust is what you need. Well, thank you so much for your time and attention. I'm going to bring Mr. Matsunaga back up to finish up.